Hello and welcome back. And yesterday we were sort of talking about a few different subjects, and some I brought up Star Trek ships and sort of what my attempt was last time. So sort of to regress on that subject, sort of a little quick sketch of something that I did. Wanted to try something that was a little different, and basically this is sort of where it ended up. Still a lot to do on the model. So it'd be sort of a Voyager size ship and was sort of geared towards like the Dominion War era. Just a second here. Yeah, it's sort of a little bit of everything. Basically, when I did the design, I went with sort of a lot of your standard phaser strips. So there's, 4 phaser strips on both the top and bottom. But I also sort of like the concept that you saw in the Defiant with pulse phasers, so I ended up adding dual pulse phasers on little outcroppings on the side. And it's sort of my throwback. There was that episode of Voyager where they had sort of a warship version of it where there was a race in the future, and they sort of had a different vision of what Voyager was doing in their system in the time. And again, it has another pulse phaser down there, and then it has sort of a torpedo pod on the bottom. So I wanted something that was sort of in line with normal Federation ships, but I also wanted it to be sort of different and unique and, break away from the mold a little bit. And, even the lower, pulse phaser that it has is sort of a toss back to the, what would it be, the All Good Things Enterprise from Next Generation, where it was set in the future with its, mega phaser cannon on the bottom. And so I just sort of wanted to bring all these different elements that I sort of enjoyed through the different Trek series and toss them together into one ship. And again, a lot of sort of foreplanning in the design. You have basically docking areas where it can crew can be transitioned, and yeah, the Galaxy X Dreadnought. And sort of ended up with more of a, I guess it'd sort of be more of a past style nacelles, but I sort of like those kind of nacelles compared to some of the newer ones. And I sort of wanted to go with an idea where your nacelles are built into the structure of the ship, but also sort of support it. So your warp, your plasma conduits, and that would be fed through this part, and you'd be attached up into the ship near the top, and just again something different. And this one was going to be, I believe at the time I was going to go for the Artemis is what I decided for the name for it. And it'll probably be a ship at some point I do want to revisit and finish because it's, very close on that edge of being done. And figured I'd sort of bring up the render of where we're sort of at with the Abydos too. So there isn't too much left to finish on this one. Basically a little bit of panel work to fill in. And then I think I want to close in this section a little bit. Like I like the mechanical element, but I think it needs to have some sort of, semi-covered cap to it. Basically just, something to allow just a peek inside. Yeah, it's very much like, the Sovereign meets the Excelsior as far as nacelle designs for this one. And like I say, this was sort of my original concept for it. It ended up a little more blockier than the original concept, but again, that's sort of the style that I go with. And sort of the evolution process of this model. And I was using a bit of the, basically for the weapons pod, a lot of its influence came from the Akira class. And I apologize if I do sound a little stuffed up today. Basically a lot of weather changes with the cold coming in, and it just sort of congests me. And I think one of the things as far as my own art and design that I'm going to try to do in the next coming weeks is obviously the season of The Expanse just finished, and there's actually quite a few good 3D models available out there. So I think I might try to dig some of them up and do some Expanse theme scenes. Well, it's something that I feel like I don't touch in as often as I could is sort of harder science style, scenery. And one of the things I sort of really want to do once COVID restrictions in our area start to go down a bit more, and we're sort of allowed to do a little bit more larger gathering events, is I think it'd be fun to do like a farmer's market kind of thing and actually do up some prints and actually sell them that way, and actually get to meet some people face to face. You know, it's probably the biggest element that I miss with you know, COVID going on is, you know, you don't realize even if you're out and people are around, you know, you don't have that same social interaction that you used to have. You used to be able to, you know, just meet a stranger walking by and, you know, you might say hi and then, you know, a casual conversation might pop in and find out that you have similar hobbies. And, you know, I just sort of, I really miss that aspect. And just sort of deciding what areas to tackle on here. Like, it doesn't need tons, it just needs, you know, a little bit of fine work to sort of bring everything into balance. Well, and one of the things I've also sort of been tossing around in my mind this year is, you know, the whole concept of maybe doing something merchandise-wise that, you know, obviously there's a lot of people that are fans of my artwork and they might actually want something physical to that aspect. I'm not sure what people would be really interested in sort of getting. Like, one of my ideas that I was sort of tossing around is maybe, you know, doing up or getting some line art pins made up and see if people would, you know, be interested in getting something like that. Like, I know there's quite a large pin collecting community out there, and, you know, it might be an interesting thing for people to collect. And again, for me, it's also a good way to sort of, you know, expand, you know, the money that I have available to, you know, do some new projects and try some new things. And I can't remember the exact name of the software, but somebody was sort of pointing to it, and it's on Steam, and basically it's sort of like, I guess you'd call it like a universe creator, renderer. So it's software based around, you know, building, you know, star systems, and, you know, you can basically, if you get the professional edition of it, it'll allow you to output them and use them as backgrounds and scenes. And so I could see that being a good way to sort of expand my art and, you know, sort of diversify, you know, the environments that a lot of my art take place in. And that's something I've been also working on improving this year. Is, for me, last year was very much about experimenting with color, bringing a lot more color into the scenes and making them a lot more vibrant and alive. And this year is sort of expanding on that and basically taking the scenes and making them not only more vibrant, but also making them more dynamic, adding more elements, you know, be it planets or asteroids, and, you know, sort of make them a lot more exciting to view. And that's sort of another question is, as obviously people that follow my art is, what would things that you'd actually like to see sort of more of done? Like obviously there's a lot of people that are Stargate fans. Basically that's sort of the focus point where my art started. But it'd definitely be interesting to see, get some input on what people would like to see, and I'm always in, the goal of evolving and bettering what I do. Yeah, that's really starting to come along. Well, that list could go on and on for pretty much forever. Stargate wise, I think I sort of touched on that last time we talked, and I sort of have the plans for sort of a science ship that I drafted up. So I wouldn't mind at some point doing that one. Let's see if I can actually find a picture of the sketch I did for that one. Yeah, it's a little sort of hard to see in this picture, but basically this is sort of the above view for the concept that I was thinking of for a science ship. I want to sort of do something a little bit different. So I wanted to take a lot more of the Asgard aesthetic and incorporate it into the ship and make them a little bit more streamlined than they have been. And this is sort of the side view, so your top would be here, bottom would be there, and this would be the side profile. So you'd sort of have like Asgard style, I guess you'd call them pylons on their ship, and then sort of a different sort of engine configuration. And then my idea for this ship is that it would actually have a little shuttlecraft that would actually dock onto the underside, so it would latch on and basically get pulled up into the hull, not into the ship, but onto the hull. So it'd have a little, shuttlecraft that could detach and fly off, and just something a little bit different in concept. And then sort of other things that I've been tossed around different ideas for is, I want to do maybe some sort of little weapon platform. Yeah, very much similar to the captain's yacht. And so I was thinking with Earth's defense is, doing something like little, defensive satellites, so you'd have, little scanners and thrusters, and it'd have a little Asgard beam cannon built onto it. Originally I was thinking more like a Gould sort of design, but I was figuring that Earth would be a little bit more its sort of own thing, and sort of playing ideas with something with weapons like I built for a friend of mine. He wanted to take the Daedalus and have a refitted version with basically little pulse cannons based around Ori technology, and having like bigger pulse cannons based around what would be the Tolan ion cannon. So this would have been before they became ineffective. And then sort of in my expanded universe, I had this vision of somewhere out, either be at basically one of the gas giants. We'd actually have a listening outpost that would detect ships entering the solar system via hyperdrive before they arrive near Earth, so that we'd have advanced warning. So it'd be very similar to something like the Midas array from Star Trek. So basically a lot of sort of detecting satellites and sort of solar panel kind of setup. I have a lot of sort of ideas floating around of things that I want to sort of play with at some point. I think the one thing I can say is there's never a lack of ideas of things to do. Yeah, again, sort of different ideas is even something like I guess it'd be sort of Gould ships post sort of more like Tok'ra or something like that, or even Jaffa after the the Gould Empire sort of fell. So obviously they'd have to build some sort of ships since so many have been lost, be it to the Replicators or Lucian Alliance. So sort of like a smaller Alkesh sized ship. And then different ideas like I've think of do things like Babylon 5, like another sort of Centauri design. This would be like a huge like a super carrier. And this would be sort of like half of a Narn ship. This part would be mirrored up there. I can't remember what this was going to be for. I think it was more of an original design that I was tossing around. And then sort of more Star Trek designs that I was playing with at one point. I got binders and binders of, sketches of different kind of ships, And this was sort of an idea I was thinking of for like a Stargate era, post-disclosure era for like a civilian sort of shuttlecraft. So it'd have sort of Asgard style, nacelles on the end off of two pylons, and then you'd sort of have the center, crew habitation area. So lots of ideas of things that can be done. And I'm probably thinking like my next non-Stargate related ship, I'm probably going to jump back to doing some Babylon 5 designs, is I do want to do a Centauri Vorchan model. Like there's some out there, but not all of them are all that great. And I do also have a sketched up design for a Veer, the ones with sort of the little flying saucer style ships, but it's sort of a fighter version. So at some point in the future I'd, definitely like to play with those. Well, I think as far as Star Trek ships, if I did revisit doing Star Trek designs, I think I'd finish the one that I sort of started first, and just sort of go from there. Like they're very tricky with, like, I'm very good at mechanical designs, but organic designs are definitely a little bit tricky to sort of do. It'd be something I'd want to practice a little bit first. But if you are into Star Trek designs, and on Facebook there's a 3D modeling group, one of their members, Mark Bell, he does absolutely phenomenal Trek designs. He's been basically going through and doing one ship every month, and they are just, works of art in and of themselves. Like he did the Daenerys decks last month, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. Well, and the nice thing that he really does with his models is basically every month he does one for his Patreon page, and they're released early on his page, and the ship that he built the month before, he basically releases for free for that month till the next model's done. So within a month period, if you're sort of keep your eye out, you can actually collect some of these amazing models. So I've been fortunate to sort of grab a few, and I think it would be very much like the Daedalus, especially if Jack had his wish of actually naming it the Enterprise. And didn't they have like I can't remember if it was the 100th episode or 200th special. I think they did like a a spoof parody on Star Trek in there too. Hello, how's it going? It always reminds me how much I should really dig out my DVD collection of Stargate and do another playthrough. Unfortunately, up here in Canada, a lot of the streaming services don't really carry it, so I have Amazon, I have Netflix. It's just, feels like you're starting to get carried away when you have every single one. That has started to look, I think, quite finished as far as what I want to do with that area. I think I want to fill a little of something into there and then basically come up with some sort of partial cover for over here. Like I like the mechanical element, but I think it needs a little... ship when I first started it. I sort of liked the base design of it, but definitely the more and more I've worked on it, the more I've come to really like the design. I think it's probably one of my favorite designs that I've done so far. There's something about, even though it's very mechanical and blocky, it sort of has a very, sort of a sweet, fast. It almost feels to me like what the Sovereign was to Star Trek. It wasn't as big as the Galaxy, but the design just felt very sleek. It felt very... I think the buzzsaw has pretty much become one of my favorite go-to tools. There's something about just being able to slice and divide that is so handy. Sort of remembering back into the series, sort of talking about materials the ships are built out of. Wasn't a lot of the Asgard technology also built or based around, I think it was like neutronium that they used in it? Almost makes you wonder how they sort of would have worked with an element like that. And that might have been actually the replicators from Atlantis, now that I sort of think on it. Sort of deciding how I want to tackle building up some cover in this section. That looks. And then I'm thinking of maybe bringing a piece out sort of that way. Let's see. that. I think I want to sort of have that a little bit more over. So outside of Stargate, what sort of other sci-fi series have people been enjoying? Yeah, The Expanse had, I think, a very solid season this year. And I've watched a little bit of WandaVision. Still not really, fully sure how I feel about it yet. Orville, definitely hoping to get back to filming because I enjoyed the last few seasons of that. Oh, and I know it's hard to find good shows that you can feel the quality is just not always quite the same, and even the new Star Trek stuff, like I try really hard to like it, but it's just not the same as what I sort of. Well, I didn't mind the season of Discovery too much. Like I think the ending could have been a little better. But overall, I thought it was, having the show in the future sort of gives them a lot more liberties on where they can sort of go and what they can do, and I think that's helped the show. But for me, Picard I felt was a huge letdown. Like there was a lot of good elements, but then there was a lot of bad elements. Yeah, Lower Decks I actually did enjoy. And with Lower Decks, I went into it basically, I knew it was going to be a cartoon version of Star Trek. I knew it was going to be, in a certain style, and I was prepared for that. And, I pretty much got what I expected, and, I enjoyed that. And I think the issue with Picard was they tried to do too many things in too little time, and they didn't put the time that they needed into the production value for the show. Like, there were some elements that were absolutely, gorgeous in it, and then you get to the last episodes and it just, everything felt rushed, everything didn't feel complete. And that sort of really let me down. Yeah, Enterprise I actually did enjoy. Like, the first season was a little hit and miss, but as the show sort of found its pace and found its direction, it really started to click, and it is a shame that it ended up getting canceled. Well, and it's one thing to have the copy and paste fleet, but the ships themselves just felt unfinished. Like, you look at the models and it was just very sad. Well, and one of the things, Star Trek wise, like they did do another series, is I actually wouldn't mind seeing one set during the Romulan War. Like the actual, before the original series sort of time with the old, I think it was the Daedalus class ships that they had at the time. It'd be sort of interesting to see a Cold War era Federation. Yeah, it actually would have been very cool to see the refit for the NX class. Like I saw sort of drawings of what they were sort of planning to turn the ship into, and it would have been, you know, style ships. Plus, everybody always called it the upside down Akira, and that would have been a nice way to, you know, fix that problem. Oh, I was just basically saying it would have been nice to see the refit version of the NX. Like for me, it would have been a nice connection, bringing it into sort of the style of the original series. And one of the biggest gripes that people had with the NX is they always called it the upside down Akira class. So sort of what's everybody's thoughts on sort of having this closed in? Like I think it shows about the right amount of mechanical element while sort of hiding it a bit and protecting it a bit. Well, if it was completely covered, then obviously it would just be more paneling. But I just sort of want to sort of keep some of that mechanical element sort of showing through, and I'm almost thinking it would be actually an interesting area to put some lights in and illuminate from inside. Sure. Well, this might be pretty close to being finished at this point. Maybe a little bit of small panel work in these areas to finish it off a bit. But I think we're very close to having a finished model. I didn't get to have a chance yesterday. Ended up getting sidetracked with some stuff with the wife after we ended up doing our stream yesterday. And after I'm sort of done here, I get to have the joy of wandering outside and doing some snow shoveling. And I think our temperature right now is, with the wind, around minus 37 Celsius. It's one of the few times where I'm very grateful I don't have a lot of walk to shovel. So I think this pretty much finishes the gunship module for the ship. Yeah, there's a small shuttle bay on the underside. Like, it's not big enough for fighters, but it allows the ship to carry a shuttle or two just in case there's circumstances where, you can't actually beam down to the planet for atmospheric reasons, or, maybe there's like a dampening field of some kind. So it allows the ship a little bit of flexibility in that way. And who knows, maybe you come across an alien race that doesn't actually, want to be beamed over. They sort of have that Star Trek fear of having your atoms disassembled and reassembled, and well, she's turned out to be quite a good little design. I'm actually very happy how it turned out. Like, I'll probably do some renders later to see how it looks in its final form, and there might be a few little small tweaks, but I think we're basically 99.99% there. Oh, it's a pleasure having you here. You have a good rest of your day. So before I take off myself, basically next time I think we're going to carry back on with the Mara. And one of the things I was sort of debating with it is I want to add some sort of weapon emplacements in this sort of section of the ship. And I've been sort of, obviously being sort of a drop ship, smaller transport, I'm sort of debating of whether to do like maybe dual pulse cannons, or maybe doing, missiles or drones. So I'm not sure what the best way to go there. So definitely wouldn't mind getting some input if anybody wants to chime in on thoughts on that. Well, that's a potential thing too. Like, I could pulse energy turret here, and Atlantis, obviously, there's the potential of having something like mini drones. Oh, sorry about that. Basically, I could do like maybe if we did a combination, maybe some sort of pulse cannon in this location, then maybe a couple, 2 or 3 tubes of either for missiles or drones. And, you know, even go as far as using something like mini drones. It'll be, I think, something that we'll experiment with next time. Like, we might just sort of try, you know, both and see what sort of feels right. And definitely, if somebody has some input they want to get, by all means, you know, let me sort of, you know your thoughts. And the other thing I sort of like with this design is I sort of did these virtual, or not virtual, but vertical lift-off fins. So it all has like a kind of a energy projected engine underneath, and then it's sort of filtered in underneath it for, you know, vertical lift. But I think that basically sort of brings us to the conclusion of today's stream, so unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to head out and start to shovel some snow. Yeah, I've heard that you guys were sort of getting a little bit of bad weather over there. And honestly, for myself, I can't complain too much. Like, until recently, it's actually been, you know, quite mild. It's probably the mildest winter that I can remember in a long time. Well, I'm going to head out, and again, I appreciate everybody coming out and watching and chit-chatting while I work. It definitely makes it a fun process. Thank you very much. Well, everybody have a good day, and I'm off and going to enjoy some relaxation. Most of my live streams I try to do on the weekend, maybe on Friday in the evening. It just sort of depends on my work week. Like work days tend to be a little bit overly hectic, so those are sort of hard to do streaming on. So basically mostly weekends, and then the occasional Friday is what I try to aim for. Same to you, and you have a good weekend.